Welcome to the Creative Condition podcast with me, Ben Talon, illustrator and creativity coach, founder of the Creative Condition, artist and writer. I bring 20 years of creative industry experience and a lifelong love of creativity, a fundamental pillar of human happiness, to you through ongoing personal exploration and the shared experiences of others. You'll get a nourishing mix of creative industry professionals and people far and wide using creativity in ways that can take our learning to the next level so we can maximise our unique blend. The show has been supported from day one by Illustration X, a tremendous illustration agency representing a shining global roster of illustrators and animators over at illustrationx.com. The music for the show is by Dirty Freud, who you can listen to now on all good streaming services. And for everything else, for my coaching, resources and inspiration, head to thecreativecondition.com. Hello and welcome to The Creative Condition. My name is Ben Talon. I'm the founder of The Creative Condition, and today we're going to be talking about excitement. It's a massive, massive factor in our creative health, and not enough of us stay excited as we get into adult life, as we get into the rigour and the grind of working, family, and all the other demands in our lives in the information age. It leaves us a cropper, it leaves us tired, it leaves us disconnected from that kind of youthful glee. Now, I wrote a post about this after an experience this weekend in which I started to look at areas in my life in which I was excited. I mean, the first question was I excited? Do I get excited anymore? Because if you don't, and you're not curious, and you don't feel a sense of magic and wonder, creativity invariably suffers. Now, I see this with clients. I see people who have disconnected from things they do for passion, for pleasure, new things, newness in our life. That's also something that is hard to come by, that we have to be intentional about to get in our lives, So today I'm going to be reading you a piece that I wrote about that, and I would love your feedback on where you get your glee, where you get that sense of magic and place in the world, because it's really, really important. Big thank you to the founding sponsor of the show, Illustration X, been here since day one, representing some of the world's greatest illustrators. illustrationx.com is where you'll also find their news section, the work they're doing with the likes of the Society of Artists Agents and the Association of Illustrators, sorry, went blank there for a moment, protecting our industry, with the likes of AI and IP theft and all that great stuff. So have a look what those guys are up to. Been here since day one, big supporter of creativity, big supporter of this show. Big thanks. Also, the Ukrainian Institute, ui.org.ua for those guys, supporting the brave creative community in Ukraine at a horrible time of war. Right, so let's get to it. If you want to coach me, by the way, getting bookings plenty this year, which is really, really cool. I'm helping artists and designers to align with their vision, or to get a vision if they don't have one, to tap into that story, that personality, and become the author of the life they want to live. If that sounds good, head to thecreativecondition.com/coach for that. So here's the piece that I wrote. I would love your feedback on this, guys. There was a moment this weekend that could have been perceived as bleak. My wife ironing, me hoovering, the kids deep in an imaginative scenario that only they understood. I'd raised the question, what excites you in a way that is even remotely close to the way you used to get wildly giddy about the things that no longer get you there? We grasped and struggled to come up with anything, laughing without humour as we entertained the possibility that we were washed up and bloody boring. There are many ways to consider this, but the train of thought began on Friday morning. One of the regular dog walkers arrived with his 2 French bulldogs. We sauntered up the side path, and just before the first bench, I inquired whether there was still a beer happening tonight. It was. We both nodded, muttered, should be good, and that was the height of the anticipation. In 2001, when I started going out drinking regularly, I made event posters for nights out in Halifax, Bradford and Keighley, for me and the other 5 people who already knew about it. This wasn't an informative act, but an expression of delirious excitement. Before that, there was football. I made scrapbooks chatting everything about Leeds United and turned up to the stadium 3 hours prior to kick-off. Before that, TV wrestling, card trading at school, or staying at a friend's house. These were formative years, and things sparkled. Take a look at the supporting image for this article. For those listening on the audio, it says simply an image of the top of my son's head overlooking a little bit of greenery on a patch of soil. This is my son showing me in which bits of this garden area in his school playground were Hogwarts, the Forbidden Forest, Hagrid's hut, and the Whomping Willow. Pure imagination and joy between him and his Potter-loving friend. I'm well aware that it's natural to habituate. I'm reading Look Again as we speak, a book about the way humans adjust to a surprising amount of things, from great to terrible. But my question to my wife was symptomatic of my internal scanning for things that excite me today. At first I drew a blank. The aforementioned interests still bring me pleasure, and while it's natural that this would be diminished compared to the box-fresh version of these things, it also saddened me that my life might now be bereft of joyous anticipation. My wife struggled too, and we began to wind each other up about whether we were still exciting to each other. But as the day went on, little things happened that were exciting. We recounted a trip to Lisbon last year, our children's first, and early plans for another potential holiday. We happened to finish Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, the book, with the kids on Friday, so we made the call to watch the film together on Saturday, and this was a thrill. What I realised as I mulled on this was that you have to fight for excitement in adult life by staying curious, trying new things, and being self-aware enough to recognise what brings on a sense of magic and wonder, instead of submitting to routines and defaulting to habits. With young twins, I've been guilty of it. At times it's hard not to, but as a creativity coach, I've identified a lack of excitement as a common blind spot. I've witnessed many people working in creative industry full-time roles, leading busy personal lives, and going for weeks, months, and even years at a time without properly giving themselves to pursuits that conjure something warm and tingly in their gut. This isn't a criticism, it's a cycle we must go through to recognise the need for intentionality when it comes to newness in our lives, in adult life. Through a personal period of anxiety last year, I'd struggled to sleep. My mother-in-law, concerned, asked if I was still making my big, bold, bright art, because most of my work stories revolved around my coaching and writing. She scrambled to cover her tracks, fearing this was a daft comment, but she had seen something critical that I'd overlooked. I am an artist. Yes, by trade, but more importantly, in my soul. On some level, we all are. It is a part of the human condition. But for me, a person who lives for creativity and storytelling, it is essential for my well-being. So I began using my Fridays to step away from my client work and my family demands to make something for me, simply because it excited me. I wrote lyrics and recorded spoken word for a long-neglected collaboration with a musician friend. I drew and listened to new music recommended by friends. I read some books. The next day I felt alive. My wife and I did those same chores. The kids demanded, the dog needed walking on familiar routes, and all the routines played out. But the way I saw the world was renewed. Possibility was there again. I thought about new lyrics. I asked better questions of other dog walkers. And I suggested family activities that we could all look forward to. What each person needs in their life to be excited is something only they could know. And it's so easy to stay in, or go out into the world in a state of fear and cynicism. But to build a healthy relationship with creativity, to have better, bigger ideas about where to take our lives or in our work, we must be engaged with our lives and alive with anticipation about something. If we go through the motions in jobs that don't energise us and surrender to apathy or convenience in the time outside of it, then it's highly unlikely to change anything because we're not curious, playful, or willing to change something for the better. And it's not about that youthful bouncing off the walls, glee. I won't be making posters for any night or turning up at Elland Road 3 hours early these days, but about slow, simple integration of self-awareness, of spurning the advances of social media traps and aggressive news headlines, and committing to ourselves enough to stay present in the world around us, enough to see the colour in it, even after 3 weeks of grey gloom and heavy rain. It might be writing a note in your phone that gets the creative juices flowing, or looking forward to sitting down with a print magazine after work, the joy of staring at a wall in this information-drenched age, a weekly phone call with a friend. The nature of what excites us evolves through our lives, but it is always possible and compulsory for healthy creativity on a moment's notice. So, let me rephrase the opening question. What are you excited about? I hope you enjoyed that, guys. I hope it stirred some food for thought. I would love to hear your feedback on it and what gets you going and how you find that in your life, because we absolutely have to remain energized as creatives, you know. Thank you, as ever, to the founding sponsor of the show, illustrationx.com, and to the Ukrainian Institute for supporting the brave Ukrainian community during this horrible time of war, ui.org.ua for those guys, illustrationx.com for Illustration X. Have a great week, guys. Stay creative, and if you want to get in touch about any of my other creativity resources, head to thecreativecondition.com. We could do some coaching together. You can check out the reading list. You can listen to any of this podcast archive, or you can read my articles. Plenty there for all budgets. Cheers, guys. Take care.